welcome to Brothers of the Word, because, brother, you need the Word. And today I am still in the midst of the longest series that I have ever preached in my life, called The Plagues of Egypt. And on the last message, I actually finished with the 10th plague. And the 10th plague of the classic 10 plagues of Egypt was death of the firstborn. And normally that would end the plagues of Egypt, but God says, no, there were 3 more plagues. Even after the children of Israel were freed, the plagues did not stop. And they were in slavery, in bondage for 430 years. You all know any other group of folk in slavery over 400 years? They were in slavery for over 400 years. And when they finally got free, for today's message, God told me to go and look at the first words that the children of Israel spoke when they were free. And in Exodus chapter 14, beginning at the 10th through the 12th verse, these are the words of the children of Israel. These are the first recorded words in the Bible of the children of Israel once they were freed. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes and beheld the Egyptians marched after them. So they were very afraid, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. Then they said to Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you so dealt with us, to bring us up out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we told you in Egypt, saying, let us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than we should die in the wilderness. And the title of today's message is The Plague of First Words. Now, I want you to understand what Proverbs said in Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. The very first words of the children of Israel, once they got their freedom, the very first words came to pass. That they told Moses, why you free us so we can die in the wilderness? The first sentence they said and the last sentence they said. See, they said it twice. You know, sometimes it's one thing, you say something one thing, but they repeated it over and over. They said it 2 times. They spoke their fate twice. The first sentence and the last sentence. The first sentence, because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness. The last sentence, for it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than we should die in the wilderness. The very first words they told Moses and the last words they told Moses, all in this first group of words of the children of Israel as they were being freed and as they were leaving Egypt, they told Moses, we're going to die in this wilderness. You know that's exactly what happened to him? That there was a power of first words. So God said the plague didn't end just on the Egyptians. Look at the first words the children of Israel said. Death and life are in the power of your tongue. Now see, right now we're in the midst of this virus. Whole lot of folk got on masks, and because they have on masks because it is a respiratory virus, and all of the science says that the death is in the mouth. They said the virus is in the mouth. So if you breathe out and you breathe on someone who is not infected, and if you breathe on them and you got infection in your mouth and you breathe out on them, it'll get them infected and could kill them. Basically what they're saying is death is in your mouth. But that ain't the only kind of death in your mouth. And that's not even the biggest kind of death that's in your mouth. Death and life is in the power of your tongue. And I saw a billboard as I was coming in today, and the billboard, it simply says this: do not get in close contact with people who are sick. That thing had a spiritual meaning to me when I saw it. It's not just people who are sick physically. You don't need to be in close contact. You don't need to have them in your inner circle with people who are sick in the mouth. Because there's life and death is in the power of the tongue. We're going to die in this wilderness, man. Why you friends? We're going to die in this wilderness. And not a single one of them made it out except Joshua and Caleb. And the only reason Joshua and Caleb made it out because they spoke something different. When all of the folk went over into the land of the giants and everybody said, look, we just like grasshoppers in the eyes of these folk. These folk big, these folk strong, these folk powerful. These folk going to just kill us, little grasshoppers. Joshua and Caleb said, we can take them. We got the power of the Lord with us. And see, the thing about it, the children of Israel had just got through seeing all of these miraculous things. They had seen the power of God. They knew God was with them. But the minute they lifted up their eyes and they saw the folk, why you bring us out to kill us, man? They cried and they just hollered, oh, man, we get... And see, that's the way it is. See, you have to be careful what you are lifting up your eyes to. God told Abraham, lift up your eyes to the stars, and I'm going to make your descendants more than you can even number these stars. You got to be careful what you lift up your eyes to. They lifted up their eyes, and they saw the Egyptian army coming after them, and they went to cry. They didn't lift their eyes beyond where they could see on a level plane. You got to lift your eyes up to God. And when you lift your eyes up to the heavens, you see a different vision, and when you see a different vision, you talk a different talk. You have to be careful of your first words. There is a power in the first. It's God. God, he just didn't ask for the offering. He said, bring me the first fruits of your offering. There was always a blessing even on the firstborn. He got a double portion. See, your first words have double power. And there's a power in just the first thing you say in the morning. There's a power in there. And as I was driving and I saw all these billboards, I saw that one billboard about saying don't get in close contact with people who are sick. But you know the biggest set of billboards that I saw? The biggest set of billboards, and these were virtually 50% of all of the billboards on the expressway. They were about lawsuits. When you begin to notice it, you see how much, $2 million settlement from a leg injury, $3 million settlement from a truck injury, and they got all this stuff. Call this to get your big settlement now. And almost every other billboard was a law firm, but it wasn't just a law firm. It was a law firm trying to get you to file suit. Not understanding that in order for you to get $3 million, you got to be messed up. You got to be really, I've been in court and I've been through lawsuits, and in order to get $3 million, you got to be messed up. So basically, you're looking at all these lawsuits, and it's getting what they're looking up and saying, oh, I could get me $3 million. Not understanding, in order for you to get $3 million, you got to be messed up. So it gets folk, they're lifting their eyes to the wrong thing. And when you lift your eyes to the wrong thing, you begin to say the wrong thing, and your first words become words of death. And the very thing the children of Israel spoke, their first words came to pass. Their first words came to pass. What are your first words when you wake up in the morning? If you have to go to a new job, what are your first words? If you're moving into a new house or a new relationship or even a new church, what are your first words? Some folk go to a new church and they say, Lord, I hope this ain't like my last church. And guess what happens? So even when you move into any new season or new thing, I had a situation once where someone was talking to me, And God says, notice these are their first words of the year. And they were negative. And he said, you need to change relationship with this person. He said, this is the first thing they've spoken for the year. He said, that's a negative spirit. And you need to change relationship with that negative spirit. I said, woo, woo. Your first words have power. And I didn't understand as I was sitting there and the music was playing and I heard God speak. When you get up, don't start off with prayer. Because I always pray normally the first thing I do. I'll pray as soon as. He said, you pray while you're sitting here. And I didn't understand it until I understand it. God wants me to change my first words. That's why my first words when I started was, it's a beautiful life and I'm going to live fully and vibrantly until the last 10 seconds and I'm going to make it to 116 years old. What are your first words? And do you notice when I began with that first word, there was a different power in there? See, just when your body even hears your first words. Your money hears your first words. You see, there's so much stuff going on in the world right now, it's going to taint most folks' first words. So when they get ready to wake up in the morning and say, Lord, there's a lot of mess going on in the world right now. It's a world just full of mess. So when your first words, when you wake up in the morning, or the world is full of mess, that's what's going to happen. You're going to bring that thing just like the children of Israel said, we're going to die in the wilderness, and every single one of them died in the wilderness. If you wake up talking about the world is full of mess, your world is going to be full of mess before you know it. There is a power in first words. Well, Pastor, what about when the world is just not? When the world it does have all this mess. Yeah, it's got a, but when has that been not the same? Now, the level of mess changes. Sometimes there's a whole lot of mess, but it's always a lot of mess somewhere in the world. All it does is just shift places. There's normally about 120 armed conflicts going on around the globe at any one time. You just don't know about it. The news doesn't even have enough space to report on all of it. So you don't even know about most of the wars and the conflicts that are going on in the world. Sometimes when it gets to your front door, it's a lot more graphic and it's a lot more impacting. But there's mess going on all the time, all throughout history. It's always going to be that way. But you have power over your first words. Do you know this has been some of the prettiest weather I have ever seen in the last few days? It's a beautiful life. It's a beautiful day. Now, you can focus on the beautiful day or you can focus on all of the mess that's going on because there's always going to be some mess somewhere. Some people are drawn and their words are drawn to mess. Does anybody know anybody like that? And normally when you get in their presence, their first words are going to be mess. Their first words are going to be problems and trouble and negative. And when you're around somebody who has first words, if you got to deal with negative, use a sweet sandwich. Start with something sweet. Talk about the sweet stuff. Put your problems and your negative in the middle and end with some sweet stuff. So you need to have most folks just have a whole pile of just negative mess that they bring to, and the first, the good morning or good afternoon or good evening is almost just rote. It doesn't have much meaning to most folks. Good morning. Let me tell you about this. And their first words are just mess. So you have to learn how to control your first words. If you can control the first words, and I just want all of us to begin practicing our first words in the morning. When we wake up, our first words, it sets the tone, it sets the power, it sets the vibration for your entire life. Proverbs 18:20, it says, from the fruit of his mouth a man's stomach is filled. With the harvest from his lips he is satisfied. From the fruit of your mouth, just the words that you speak is powerful. And your first words, if we can concentrate and focus on getting our first words right. And I believe today that, many Christians, they're living defeated lives because of their first words. and they don't learn how to speak properly. Now I'm a strong believer that you have to do, but the doing always is preceded by the speaking. And you can tell people who are going to do some great things by the way they talk. And you can also tell folk who are always going to be in a mess, who are going to die in. See, the children of Israel literally died in a mess. They never got out of the wilderness, but their first words was a rubber stamp to almost all of the other words that they spoke. They were complaining, they were murmuring, they were belly aching, and just made God mad. And they had been in bondage for 430 years. They had so much to be thankful for. But all they saw and all they could lift up their eyes to was the negative. So we need to be really careful about our first words. That your body can hear and feel your first words. Child, I just ain't feeling well. I'm sick. I'm getting old. My body's starting to get old. It just hurting. Everything hurting. You ever heard anybody say that? Everything hurting. And so don't you know your cells hear that? Every muscle hears that. So when you go to talking about, child, I'm just getting old and stuff ain't working like it used to, and some of the stuff ain't working at all. So when you start talking like that, every cell and nerve fiber and muscle in your body hears what you're saying. And they have to start lining up with what you're saying. They have to start lining up with the fruit of your mouth. And some of the fruit of our mouths are rotten. And all of us sometimes have to deal with when life can start beating, our words will start slacking, and we'll start speaking this negative stuff. We'll start speaking this wilderness stuff instead of this promised land stuff. And when you begin to speak wilderness, you live in the wilderness. When you begin to speak promised land, you move towards the promised land. Now, it doesn't mean you get there right away. The children of Israel, even if they had spoken promised land, it still would have taken them 40 days to march there. It would have taken them 40 days. Instead, they died in the wilderness after spending 40 years. But they spoke it almost before the journey began. So when you begin to speak words of power and the fruit of power into every situation in your life, it changes some stuff. I told you, but we had instances in the business when all this stuff looked like it was coming. I ain't going to even say that. I ain't going to say our sales are going to be down because the money, my money will hear that. Don't you know your money got ears, it got wings, so if it got wings, it's got ears. I said, my money will hear that. So I don't want to speak anything about anything being down because my money's going to hear it. It'll get in the spirits of the people, and as a result, it'll go down. It'll do what the words of my mouth commanded to do. And I believe we're going to have some tough times coming, but the Bible says 1,000 will fall at thy left and 10,000 at thy right. But it ain't going to come down to you, but it'll come by you if you call it. See, that's some of us call. Child, you know, getting ready to get real rough out here. My money getting ready to get real funny. So when you begin to talk about, child, I think I'm going to lose my job. When you begin to talk like that, oh, the angels will hear you. I had a talk with my youngest son, George, the other day. He said, Daddy, I'm going to even stop speaking some stuff aloud because I realize both sides hearing what I say. And he's only 15 years old, but he realized, he said, both sides hear what I say. It's three sides hear what you say. The angelic side, the demonic side, and you. So you hear what you say. So when we begin to talk about us and what's coming our way, we got to speak this thing. And you've got to have power in your words because life and death is in the power of our words. You know, God began this whole world with words. Let there be light. And there was light. He spoke stuff into existence. Jesus said in Matthew 12:37, For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. Justified or condemned just by our words. Romans 4:16. Therefore, and I want you to understand, this is talking about Abraham, and it's talking about Abraham with his faith. But men, women, y'all don't need to listen. Men, I want you to listen to this about Abraham in particular. And you'll understand it when I get to the end of these verses. It's Romans beginning at chapter 4, verse 16. This is for the men. Therefore, it is of faith, that it might be by grace, to the end the promise might be sure to all the seed. Not to that only which is of the law, but to that also which is of the faith of Abraham, who is the father of us all. As it is written, I have made thee a father of many nations, before him whom he believed, even God, whom quickeneth the dead, and calleth those things which be not as though they were, who against hope believed in hope, that he might become the father of many nations, according to that which was spoken. So shall thy seed be. Now, this is the part I want the men to understand. Women, just put your hand, because this ain't for the women, this is for the men. And being not weak in faith, he considered not his own body now dead, when he was about 100 years old, neither yet the deadness of Sarah's womb. He staggered not at the promise of God through unbelief, but was strong in faith, giving glory to God, and being fully persuaded that what he had promised, he was able to perform. Men, do y'all understand that? This man was 100 years old, and it says his body was dead. But he began to consider the promise to God, and he said he was able to perform. Now, see, women may not know what that means, but men know what that means. He was 100 years old, and he said his body was considered dead, and the womb of his wife was considered dead. But he said when he considered the promises of God and gave glory to God, at 100 years old, he was able to perform. Men, do you all get that? Now, I know the women don't understand what that means. But men, do you understand that? See, when you lift up your eyes, depending on what you're looking at, it lifts up some other stuff. So here was Abraham, 100 years old. And because he had belief and he never let his words. Actually, Abraham, he did let his words get out of whack at one point, because he told his servant, Eliezer, he said, man, I ain't got no son. You may have to be my heir. And God had to come back and get him on the right path, because if he kept talking like that, he wouldn't have been able to perform. You can't perform at 100 years old talking negative. God, my body old and everything wrinkled and I'm weak and I'm just, all soggy and I ain't going to be able to do nothing. You sure won't. Abraham had to change his voice from when he was talking to his servant, but his servant was going to inherit all this stuff. He had to change what he was saying. He had to change his first words. And when your words change, your power changes. And you're able to do some things that other folk will not be able to understand, because it's not just you. The angels hear it and the demons hear it. And which one are you empowering? Because see, when you speak the negative stuff, you're empowering the demonic to kill, steal, and destroy, to take all of your stuff. And you tell me, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my house, I'm going to lose my car. See, the demons are here, and they go to laughing when you hear, woo, let's go. They just have spoken they're going to lose their job. They've spoken they're going to lose their house. They've spoken they're going to lose their car. Let's go. We've got to come in. Let's go. So it's no accident that a lot of this stuff happens when you begin to speak the negative into your world. But what are your first words? And we're in a new season. We're in a whole new season. What are your words for this season? Are you going to lift up your eyes to the TV? And if you lift up your eyes to the TV, it's going to be bad news. Because there's nothing good on TV. There's almost nothing good on social media. So when you lift up your eyes to that stuff, you got to lift up to the heavens. Not down there, not at the TV and to the world. You got to lift up your eyes up in heaven. And you have to be able to see. And we've got to be able to understand the power of the tongue and the power of our words. I have one of the biggest problems I have is just doing what God tells me to do. And sometimes I say, Lord, I got to start speaking. I'm an obedient man. I am an obedient man. See, when I just can't do right. I just can't do right. Save my life. You sure won't be able to. You got to start speaking the things that are not as though they were. And there's a power that comes with that. It's like when we're working out and you got somebody which you said, that's too heavy. You ain't going to be left that. You like to pop some of your food with that. And then you got another group that say, come on. And they put their hand under the weight and just, don't even touch it. But it just looked like they lift it, and just somebody just makes it so much lighter for you to get on through. See, there's a power, not just in your words, but the words of those around you. That's why when that person goes, look, these are their first words of the season, and you need to change relationship. Because if you're around them who are constantly speaking the negative, it takes you down. You got to be around some folk with some life. If you're around folks speaking, and the mask won't stop them dead words. There's no N95 is supposed to stop most viruses. Even if you had an N100, it won't stop them dead. It won't stop them dead words. Those dead words can come right on through, and they come right in, and they hit your spirit. But when we learn the power of our first words, and I want you to start even with your words. Too often our words are dealing with what I would call, what we think of the mechanism, not the end result. We talk about, I'm gonna get some more money. I'm gonna get me a nice car. But I want you to go beyond that, and you start speaking the spirit things. I'm gonna be full of joy. I'm gonna be full of life. I'm gonna be at peace regardless. See, these are things that transcend all the material stuff. And the world will still, by looking, if you lift up your eyes to the world will have you all focused on the material stuff. And that's why when people get all the material stuff after they've had it for a few months, they're still not happy. So if you focus on the things that go beyond the material, if you begin to speak that, not what you think is the mechanism, you think and you speak the end result, I'm going to be full of joy. And if you're going to be full of joy, when you begin to speak that, you'll find that regardless of what is around you. I used to fly a plane, and one of the things they would teach you about landing was the attitude of the plane. Pastor, you mean the altitude? No, not the altitude of the plane, the attitude of the plane. And the attitude of the plane basically is the angle of pitch of the nose as you come into land. And you have to have the right attitude to be able to land regardless of the atmospheric conditions. If you got a heavy crosswind, you have to let up your flaps. It increases or decreases the stall speed. And as you get ready to come in and land, you got your flaps laid up, but you got to make sure you got the nose at the right angle. You have to have the right attitude. And if you have the right attitude, regardless of what the external atmospheric conditions are, you can land the plane. If you got the wrong attitude, see, if you come down and your attitude is going too far down, you're going to just crash straight into the ground. It can be just as pretty, no wind, sun out, everything. If your attitude is too far down, you come down with the wrong attitude and hit the runway, you're going to just bust into flames because you're going to come straight down and hit. See, if your attitude has to be right. And if your attitude is right, you can take off and you can land regardless of what the conditions are around you. This sets your attitude. See, on a plane, moving the yoke back or forwards sets the attitude of the plane. But that's why they call this little thing a mighty yoke that can turn even a big old ox. This little thing right here. There is power, there is life, and there is death in the power of the tongue. And I want everybody to be cognizant of the first words you speak from this point on. The first words you speak after this message from right now. When I get through preaching, somebody got to say something. You're going to say something. So I want you to be cognizant. What are your first words? And those first words have a double power. And this thing will cost, don't worry about all this stuff going on. Because I've always said, I told you from the front, I'm not going to get sick. You ain't never heard me word a bit about it. I've declared up front, I am not going to get sick. I'm not going to get sick, and I'm not. A virus hit my body. No, this fella already, we not welcome here. We got to go somewhere where they worried about the virus. We got to go somewhere they said, I might get sick. I've been sick. I was sick last year. I was sick for the year before that. I'm about going to get sick. We need to go somewhere where we welcome. We're not welcoming Pastor Nathaniel's body. So I'm not worried about that. And I always say you be practical with stuff. But I've declared up front, I'm not going to get, and I have not had so much as a sniffle. I don't know whether I've been exposed to the virus or not. I ain't worried about that. I'm not going to get so much as a sniffle. It's not going to bother me. I declare it. I've spoken. And viruses can just hear you. They can. They hear what you're saying. There's a thing, it's like a dog. A dog knows when you're scared. They can feel it. They can smell it. There's something in the vibration, and your whole immune system, fear destroys your immune system. Stress destroys your immune system. So the more you worry, the weaker you get. And Job said, the very thing I've been worried about has come upon me. He said it 2 times. He had the worst experiences detailed in the Bible. But he said, the very thing I was worried about, the very thing I feared came upon me. Fear itself has a power to weaken your immune system. So the very thing, the more scared, the more likely you are to be negatively affected by it. There is a power. I travel a whole lot. And I've read a whole lot of stuff about traveling. Traveling can be dangerous. But they say one thing about, and it can be dangerous because there are a lot of criminal elements everywhere. But they say one thing about it. Folk who are not scared, their percentage and probability, Prophet Dexter can tell you that he's a state trooper. He can tell you, when you ain't, I don't walk scared. I go some folks and I don't know about that fella there. You know, he a foreigner, he from out of town, but something about him, they're like, if we fool with him, it just might not be worth it. There's a difference. When you walk scared, if you walk, that's how criminals pick their mark. They're looking for, that's how viruses and bacteria pick their mark. They're looking for somebody weak. They're looking for somebody scared. They're looking for somebody talking negative. They're looking for somebody who invites it into them. When you walk like you just ain't going to take no stuff that ain't gonna, and you have no fear, folk don't fool with you. Demons are the same way. Demons ain't stupid. They're very smart. They ain't stupid. They want to deal with somebody who they know they can captivate and attack and conquer. They don't want to fool with anybody. They just don't. So the power of your words will command so much in this external world. And I just want everybody within the sound of my voice, for those of you who are watching the stream, guard your first words from the very point of what you're going to say. Right as my sermon is, you're going to say something sooner or later. You may not say anything for another hour, but sooner or later you're going to say, take note of your first words. When you wake up in the morning, take note of your first words. And whether you wake up to your spouse and tell them something or whether you speak to yourself, take note of your first words. When your spouse gets home, take note of your first words. Before you get ready to go to sleep, take note. That's why I sleep so much better when I get my meditation and prayer in at night. There's something about it. Take note of your first words before you go into any new season or any new thing. Take note of your first words. Your first words have double power. But for far too many Christians, we have the plague of first words, just like the children of Israel. And see, the world doesn't give a hoot because you just been through a lot. They have been through 430 years. neighborhood, how much they've been through. Still, they died in that wilderness because they began with first words that declared their fate. What are you declaring your fate will be? This is Pastor Nathaniel. You can go to brothersoftheword.com. You can listen to this message and all of the messages of the plagues of Egypt absolutely free of charge. Guard your words, speak power, speak life, and watch your world change. Thank you for joining us today at Brothers of the Word, because, brother, you need the Word. From Brothers